executed the perfect crime until they got away with it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode here on my random horror review series. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yeah, episode 60 is here, and I've got one here from Artsploitation Films, one of my favorite labels out there. These guys seem to put out really cool stuff from around the world. They're always, digging from the greatest of independent films out of these cool countries and stuff like that. This one right here is a production from 2014, and it's from France, and it is called Fever. Usually when Artsploitation puts out films, I know absolutely nothing about them. And this was no different. I didn't really know a thing going into this one. But I did know that this one was more like a drama / psychological thriller in a way. Not really a horror film, but anyways, getting into the premise of this one. Basically, this one follows your two main characters of Damien and Pierre. They are your very kind of typical upper class, pretty good looking high school senior kids. They seem to have everything kind of going for them. The thing is, they have just murdered this lady that they do not know. They broke into her apartment and they killed her. And only because they deemed her to be a whore. And with the slight possibility that, that God had told them to do this type of crime. And that's pretty much the setup to the film. Okay. Now, my thoughts on this film. This is a very interesting character study, and that has a very jarring narrative to it. Okay, let me explain. Now, basically what this film is you got these two characters, Damien and Pierre. They do this horrific crime, and now at the beginning of the film, you don't even get to see the crime. You only get to hear it. And it's a very effective scene because it's just pitch black. You get to hear the screams, then it cuts to the credits, and then it shows them going down to a deli grabbing food, and they seem somewhat very happy and ambitious of what they've just done, and it's kind of crazy. And then they ultimately get away with their crime. It says right on the back, that's not a spoiler alert. They just, kind of get away with their crime, and they seem like, they got everything going for them. And sooner than later, Pierre kind of starts to, he starts to have like an identity crisis. He's having problems with what they have done. He doesn't really know how to cope with it. He kind of gets over it. And then the same thing happens to Damien about halfway through the film after he has a conversation with his grandpa. And now his grandpa kind of reveals some information about, this very subtle dialogue in the film that is very prevalent throughout this whole film. It's kind of one of those films you really got to kind of pay attention because it's very jarring, which we'll get to in a minute. Where he kind of talks about like war, criminal war things and stuff like that. And it is a contrast to what they're learning in school. They're learning about these two characters by the name of Maurice Papon, I believe is what his name is, and Adolf Eichmann. I believe Papon was some type of French civil servant or something like that. And Adolf Eichmann, I believe, was like some type of, he was like the leader of one of the SS groups or something. He was like a recruiter or something like that. But they're learning about them in school, and it kind of relates to what they're doing in their real lives and stuff. So they start to study this more. But the thing is with this film that's very interesting is that you have this setup of these two kids that kill this woman. And, it kind of deals with that for the first half of the film, and then it jars itself away completely. You get introduced to a character named Zoe. She's this redheaded girl. She has a feeling that these two boys have something to do with this murder, but it doesn't really explain why she gets this feeling. She has like this glove evidence and things like that, but it's very kind of out there. It's very subtle in the film. And then she all of a sudden starts to have identity crisis. So it's like this study of these two boys, dealing with what they've done, and, they start doing all this research about the wars and stuff like that. And that kind of relates the contrast of what's going on in school and things like that. And then you got this other character that's in the film too, and she never goes to the police or anything. She kind of deals with it on her own, and it's just this very weird, jarred narrative where you have this setup, and then it just completely gets away from it, and then it kind of goes into this whole other thing. It's a very, very strange, odd film that is very slow. It's very subtle, and I think a lot of people might get this film, or they might take this film as very boring and very kind of confusing because it's not set up or it doesn't deliver what is set up in this. There's no investigative aspect to this at all about these boys killing this woman, and then it just gets away from it, and it's just completely subtle in all ways. Very, very interesting film, though, I have to say. Character studies that I think won't be for everybody. If you don't know, like, a lot about the war, World War II history and things like that, I think some of that stuff might be lost in translation, which is kind of a shame for American viewers and things like that. This might be a little more easy to understand for European viewers and things like that. But yeah, this one is interesting, man. There's a lot of strange dialogue in this film where the two boys are talking about, maybe picking out their second victim at one time. And, Damien says to Pierre, he goes, it's just God's choice. It's God's choice. We don't get to pick them. And then he says, it's God's way of remaining anonymous. And I thought that line was just like one of the most haunting things ever. I'm just like, damn, it's really, really fucking strange. But it's nothing what you think it's going to be from the setup. And I kind of like that about this film. My major gripes with this film, though, is the simple fact that it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it's almost too subtle for itself. It's a very ambitious film. It has all these ideas. I don't think anything really comes out of it, and the film really just ends. I feel like there's no conclusion to this. I feel like you're just kind of like, okay, I just watched 80 minutes for what? Kind of thing. I don't think it was that effective at all. It didn't leave me going, oh, wow, I'm going to be thinking about this one for days and stuff. It's kind of one of those films that it's really hard to explain because I've never seen a film develop like this where you have this horrific act, it just completely gets away from it halfway through the film. You have all these other kind of weird interactions with characters, and then you got this weird, non-existing third act. Very strange. I will say, the film itself is very beautiful. It's shot great. I think it's acted well. I think the dialogue is awesome. It's very subtle. It's creepy. It is psychological. It kind of keeps you intrigued to the point where you're like, hey, what the fuck is going on with these characters? Where is it going? Where is it going to end up? It's too bad it doesn't really deliver in the end, but it is a very, very beautiful film. It's got a very haunting kind of low-key score to it, mixed in with some very interesting songs throughout the film. It's a very, very jarring film. The first time you watch this one, you're going to be like, what the hell did I just watch? And I can see why a lot of people are deeming this one to be super boring. I wasn't overly that bored. I also knew going into this one that, could be nothing really happens in this one, so I kind of expected that. But it got me intrigued in the dialogue, and I just thought it was a very interestingly written film. But this one, definitely not for everybody. I'm not even 100% sure it's even for myself, to be honest. But with all that said, I think it's just way too jarring. I like the ambition in the film, but I think it's just, the narrative is just so strangely done, and it doesn't really deliver the goods. So I'm going to give this one about a 6 out of 10. Definitely view this one at your own risk. It's not a poorly made film by any means. I mean, I couldn't say like how beautiful it is. It looks great. The cinematography is great. There's a lot of really cool shots. The acting's really good. Even though this one is in French subtitles, I thought the acting was superb. Like, you can tell that they're just doing a really good job. So, but anyways, Fever, very, very difficult film to review without giving too much away and stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting one, just not for everybody. Yeah, so anyways, guys, that's going to do it for episode 60. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was very, very hard to talk about. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. So leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought. I'll check you guys later in episode 61. Peace out, homies. Movie quote time. Intriguing and intelligent and chilling. The New York Times. Man, I actually have to agree with that. It is intriguing, it is intelligent, it is kind of chilling with some of the dialogue. Yeah, they got it right. Proactive, engaging, and fascinating. NYCFilmGuru.com. I agree with that too. Yeah.